Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, 10 channels and stage shows. You can find the link in the description. You can bypass the Apple upcharge, pay just $2.99 per month, and you're in for as long as you like. You can cancel at any time as well. We call it the most heat anywhere, the most heat information, conversation, consternation, celebration, repudiation, whatever it is you want. Yes, you can even say you're part of Heat Nation. Check it out. It's Off the Floor right there in the description. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Includes Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Prize Picks is the official fantasy partner of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Prize Picks, you can play across the sports spectrum, up to 6 players together. Again, Prize Picks is where you can go to do the flex plays again. It is legal in the state of Florida. It's all there, so make sure you use the code 5, F-I-V-E, and start playing on the play-in and the playoffs today. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. The Miami Heat are in the play-in for the third straight season. They are again playing the Chicago Bulls. Now, they've beaten the Bulls the last 2 years, and they've eliminated them from the playoffs entirely, but this is a different Bulls team. And it's a Bulls team that has beaten the Miami Heat 3 times and, frankly, run all over them all 3 times, especially Josh Giddey, who had one of the most ridiculous triple-doubles you'll ever see from a guy who's not Jokic or LeBron or Westbrook in the last game against Miami. And that came after him averaging 24 points in the first 2 games against Miami. So, again, Brady and I are going to discuss this today. Again, you follow me, Ethan J. Skolnick and Brady at Brady Hawk 305. How can the Miami Heat actually win this game if you want them to win this game? We know there are some who don't want them to win this game. We got into all the draft pick ramifications. Alex and I just did another podcast on that. When it comes to just the Heat pick, not the Golden State pick, if Miami makes the playoffs, then they are giving away their pick. So if they win this game and then win the game against Orlando or Atlanta on Friday, then they will give away their pick, but they will get their pick next year. If they keep their pick this year by missing the playoffs, by losing either of these 2 games, again, the first game and then the potential second game, then they keep their pick, but then they will give away their pick next year and in 2028 unprotected. So that will put them in a position where they got to accelerate this process or else they're going to be giving away unprotected picks. Brady, to you, okay, if we're just talking about winning this game, and it's on the road. It's in Chicago, which can get a little loud, but again, it's not a great Chicago team. They've been in the play-in now repeatedly. They had the same result repeatedly against Miami. But as you look at it, if you're looking at what they have done to Miami in the first 3 games, what is it that Miami needs to shut off the most?
It's definitely the transition stuff. Mostly, I think if there's one thing, I've kind of said this over this past week, if there's anything that Miami needs to do more than anything else, it's control pace. It's trying to find a way to will this game to the free throw line, try to slow this game down as much as possible, play into the half court, play into their style. Just because if they get in a running match, it's just not going to work out. Spo kind of mentioned after this last game against the Wizards, even though they didn't have all their main guys playing, it was a good thing to have, to play against New Orleans and Washington, or 2 young teams with a bunch of, their other guys playing that are just running it like an open gym. It almost felt like they're preparing for this game because it's going to be in a similar style, even though those games were meaningless. You got to get back on defense because they're going to push right after a rebound. I was looking at some of the numbers. I think they're averaging 32 points a game in transition, which I think is second in the NBA. Like, they really just kill you in that area. And it's not just like one or two players. They all are running at all times. So that's a big portion of this. It's funny because they're in the 9 and 10, and we talk about them being glued to each other in this playing range. But you look at some of the numbers, they're pretty exact on a lot of like offensive rating this season. Bulls are 20, Heat are 21. Like, it's just like that's linked right. Post All-Star break, Miami has jumped to 9th in defensive rating because they've just been better in defense in general post All-Star break. The Bulls are 10. So like a lot of the trends that you're seeing from Miami, you've seen kind of from the Bulls. They're kind of even in a lot of those areas. But I think the number one thing before we talk about the other stuff and specific players, I think Wiggins specifically is kind of the X factor in this game to me, because he has the ability to slow this game down, drive, gets to the middle of the floor, gets to the free throw line, play in the mid post. Like, if he can find a way to do stuff like that where he could slow this thing down, they just have a different game in hand. I mean, the last time they played Chicago, Wiggins was playing, but he just wasn't really in a rhythm because he was coming off the injury and all that stuff. So if they could find a way, because they also shut the water off on Tyler in that game. I mean, he had 1 3-point attempt at halftime. I think he ended up with 4 in the game. Yes, he did his damage from 2, but if they could find a way to make Wiggins the primary guy out the gate in this game and have Tyler play off of that off the ball, I think they could be in a decent spot, at least early in the game.
So, I mean, again, you talk about some of these ratings being similar, but how they get to it is so different. I just want to get to the differences between this team and the team that the Heat played last year. Okay, so let's go over some of the players that played last season, because the Bulls made major changes over the offseason. So last year, you're talking about Levine, you're talking about DeRozan. You have said that it's easier again for the Heat to kind of shut off the faucet on one guy when they know that there's one guy that they need to go after than it is when it's sort of all over the place. But isn't like Giddey that guy now? Like, isn't Miami going to start and sort of end their game plan with him?
They're going to focus on him, but it's harder because let's say you start blitzing or throwing a double at him. I mean, he's going to make the right read and get the ball to the stands quick because he's not killing you as a scorer because you're doubling and he's just such a dynamic scorer. He's kind of killing them as a scorer because they're helping off them a lot of times. He's getting open threes and he's building a rhythm, but he's impacting the game in other ways. So they have to prioritize just putting one of their primary defenders like Davion or Wiggins on him and say just box him one, chase him around, make him uncomfortable. I don't like the idea of setting doubles because they have guys that can kill you on the backside of those 4 and 3s. Like if it's Vucevic or some of these other guys, Kobe White, obviously, it could get hot at any time. Like they have some other guys that can do that. So it's like, it's got to be somebody's job, I feel like, in this game where they assign and say, just make him uncomfortable. And honestly, I think that guy is Davion. I think if they were fully healthy, I was thinking about this the other day because Pella sprained his ankle in shoot-arounds a couple games ago. I think he would have kind of been the perfect guy for this matchup. I know he played in the last one, but just to be like, we're bringing him off the bench and just go be physical with him. Like, just if you pick up a bunch of fouls, like it's not as big of a deal as it was when we didn't have Wiggins. Go just be overly physical with this guy. I don't really know if they have that guy now without Pella, like just to throw in the mix and do that. I mean, they could do it with Haywood, but Haywood doesn't really have a good whistle. Haywood picks up a lot of those fouls when he hand checks or does stuff like that. So I'd say that's the biggest thing, being physical, guarding one-on-one. But it's like I said, as you mentioned, I trust it more when there's a certain guy that could scheme things around and say, okay, we can help off this guy weak side. We're going to hedge over on DeRozan. We're going to let him once he gets to that free throw line area, we're going to double over. Like when they have certain things in check, it's so much easier. But like this team just has really good ball movement. They play fast and they just hit you from a lot of different areas. So it's like, it's harder to scheme against than some of these other teams.
All right. So I want to go through the lineups from last year. Okay, and then the Davion question, I want to explore that a little bit more. But last year against the Heat, remember, Jimmy had gotten hurt in the prior game. So Jimmy had gotten hurt against Philadelphia. So this was the Chicago game. This was a play-in game. The starting lineup for Chicago was Ayo Dosunmu, played 41 minutes. DeMar DeRozan played 41 minutes. Kobe White, still there, played 36 minutes. Vucevic played 35 minutes, still there. Caruso, who was traded for Giddey, played 33 minutes. Javonte Green, Dalen Terry, Torrey Craig, and Andre Drummond coming off the bench, all played between 7 and 17 minutes. The Heat starting lineup last year, just to show you how much things have changed, Tyler and Bam, but the other three starters in that game were Jaquez, Jovic, and Caleb. And the leading minute getter was Jaime with 35 minutes. That's not happening again. Off the bench, Highsmith played 31 minutes, was a plus 10. Kevin Love, who's not going to play in this game, played 12 minutes. DeLon Wright, who's obviously not with the Heat anymore, played 23 minutes. And Duncan Robinson played 12. Again, so just give some perspective on how the rosters have changed. Let me ask you this question. This Miami roster that they're taking into this play-in game, because remember, last year they didn't have Jimmy. Is this roster better than the one they put out against Chicago last year?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, the high minutes of Jaime and replacing that with Wiggins alone, I think helps. Replacing DeLon, as you mentioned, with Davion, like those, there's certain trade-offs. I mean, yes, they would have, they could have used a healthy Caleb in this playing game compared to last year, because obviously he was playing at a decent level. Jovic being healthy would help. But yeah, I think this roster is better. But the issue is, I think Chicago's rosters, there's more of a gap between Chicago's roster being better than Miami's roster being better, if that makes sense. Like, I think there's just a better cohesive group with the Chicago team. And honestly, it's funny when you look at, you were naming the minutes from last year. I'm looking at this game that they just played recently. It almost looks like a Knicks chart box score with the amount of minutes the starters are playing. Like, they're just going to play their main guys for a large portion of time. And honestly, I was going to mention to you, that would be the difference in this game, because how many times have we been mentioning recently how they don't play Bam and Tyler for 40 minutes, or they don't play, like, if they continue to run this same rotation that they've been in keeping them off the floor for long portions, and you have Giddey and Kobe White playing 42 minutes, I don't know. Those stretches have been the key stretches in these games, specifically against Chicago, that have turned games when Tyler and Bam are on the bench, when they have these other lineups that go in where they go into these offensive, just unable to score moments of the game, 2-3 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're in a weird spot. The game before this past game against the Bulls, when the last time they played the Bulls, Terry and Jaime were playing massive minutes in that game in the rotation off the bench. Like, I think Terry had close to 30 minutes in that game. So this is definitely a different rotation that you're going to see in this game compared to those other games. But yeah, it's going to be tough to do. I mean, the 3-point shooting, I mean, is the easiest thing to say about this game, but that's going to be probably one of the biggest things too. I mean, Miami came out the gate in the last one. I think it shot pretty well. They ended up shooting 36% from three. Chicago shot 38%. But like I said, I'm not as worried about the shot making. It's more about getting the right ones, getting Tyler. Like, Tyler needs to get up 9-10 threes in this game. Like, that would be my bottom line offensive philosophy for Tyler. Say, you need to get up this many threes, because he's done a great job in games like this. I think he was highly efficient for two. He had a bunch of floaters, a bunch of layups. It was good. That portion was good. But I don't know. I think he has to cut some of that out and just let it fly a couple times, because that's the only way you're going to beat a team like this, and just take advantage of those key stretches. Yeah,
and again, Tyler's on the spot here. He did what the Heat asked him to do, called him fragile, played, 70, would have played 77 games, I guess, if not for holding him out of the last one, and led the Heat in minutes by a pretty large margin. So, we'll see how much they lean on him, but I think this is a 38 to 40 minute game for him and a 38 to 40 minute game for Bam, or it should be, if you're actually trying to win the game. This is not a game to play them 34, 35 and try to figure it out otherwise. All right, after the break, I will get to Brady's actual prediction on this game now that he's laid it out for you. So I'm giving you a minute to think about it. Before we get there, I want to mention a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them at allproconstructionbuilders.com. Danny and his team, they're always rooting for the Heat. Well, most of the time. Anyway, 305-484-4429. What do? They protect your house. We know it's always hurricane season in South Florida or close to it. So don't wait until the last minute. Get the free estimate from All Pro Construction Builders, and also get the 5.5% discount if you mention 5 Reasons or 5 on the floor. So check it out. It's 305-484-4429. All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram, allproconstructionbuilders.com. And again, Danny at 305-484-4429. All right, now everything is pointing towards Bulls win here, simply because the matchup has favored them the entire season. They'll be at home. The Heat competed late in the year. We know that. They're going to compete. The organization wants them to make the playoffs, particularly with the way the Golden State pick is played out, where it still looks like you're going to get a decent pick in the first round, even if you have to give away this pick and wait till next year. But all of that in light of it, like there is a style problem here. And there's also an issue of the Heat's core. I know we saw it, some against New Orleans, but that wasn't a real opponent. Hasn't really played. I mean, Wiggins was in and out of the lineup late in the year. It does seem like Spoelstra had settled on this Davion Mitchell, Highsmith, Kyle Anderson bench. So I think we'll see a lot of that. But I think Heat fans are concerned that by the time Davion Mitchell gets in the game, that maybe Giddey has gotten off here. I'm torn on it. I'll give mine first, and then I'll give it to you. I think that the Heat have enough core experience of players who played in big games like Bam, Tyler, and Wiggins, Highsmith. Some of these guys have been through for one team or another. That I don't think the moment's going to be too big for them. But the style part worries me, and the way that the Heat close games, which I mean they couldn't even do. I know it was totally different players, but even against Washington the other night, it just sort of reinforced that. The other day, I can see a scenario where the Heat play it close and lose. That the things we've talked about all year and just the decision making down the stretch, Tyler's going to have to be on point with that stuff. He hasn't been consistently. It's been sort of the one sore spot of his game has been some of the decision making in the clutch. I don't know. It just feels like a season that ends that way. It's been pointing to it all the time for like a team. You started the year saying you weren't going to be in the play-in. You basically, counting on playoff Jimmy to motivated contract year Jimmy to keep you out of the play-in. You end up in the play-in and then you lose to the same team in the play-in that you beat the last 2 years. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Is that how it feels like to you?
It feels like it'll probably go similarly to the way the last game went, where I think Miami comes out strong. I think they have a big first quarter. I think they kind of have that first punch, but I'm always worried about with this team this season is the counter punch back, because it's always coming. It's always going to be there at some point in the game. And then it always feels like kind of a late scramble. So kind of what you described, I 100% do believe this is a close game. I think this is going to come down to literally, like I said, Miami's going to have a lead. They're going to cut it down at halftime. They're going to make runs in the third quarter. And then it's going to come down to a close stretch in the fourth quarter. And it'll come down to the minutes and saying, are they going to play Bam and Tyler the entire second half? Are they going to play these guys through like Chicago is? Because those minutes are going to make the difference. I will say the only way the other scenario that I do see Miami winning this game is Chicago doesn't shoot the three ball like they were in past matchups this season. Like they are due, and maybe I'm jinxing them now, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like I just think they're due for a bad shooting night. I mean, they're 17th, I think, at 3-point shooting post All-Star break. Miami, I think, is still top 10. I'm not as talking about Miami just out shooting them totally, but I just think there's a stretch here where if Miami plays a little bit more one-on-one ball, they don't throw as much help as at Giddey. It's more so just guard your yard, force them into tough shots late. They could late help with Bam aware around the rim, and don't help off some of these guys. Because how many times in these games we've seen like guys like Huerter, these other guys just get wide open corner threes. Like they've had target practice in a lot of these games that I'm more worried about that stuff. If Giddey goes and gets 30, I mean, that's fine. Like I just more worry about him getting the 10, 12 assists, because that's kind of been the easy part of their offense over this stretch. So if they could find a way to limit those type of spot up, weak side threes, and now the Bulls are shooting 30% from three in this game, I think Miami has a clear chance and a clear path of winning this game. So that's the one scenario I'd really look out for, is just the 3-point shooting and Miami just kind of just outwilling them. But it does scare the transition stuff is just the scariest part, because as much as we talk about it, as much as they're going to preach it before the game and now and all this stuff, it's one of the hardest things to prepare for. It's so hard to prepare for that speed and just for that style of play, because if Miami comes out the gate and they have a couple, 5-6 possessions where they're missing, and then every possession here is a run out. Spo was even saying that there was moments in the last game, and it's true, where they would make a shot and the Bulls were getting a transition bucket off a make. Like that's how fast they were playing in that game. So I'm interested in that. And the last thing I'll say, because I know we mentioned Wiggins, we mentioned Tyler. I mean, Bam's a big, probably the most major part of this. I mean, Tyler's going to get his. I think Tyler's going to get 20, 25 plus points in this game. I think that's kind of a given at this point, no matter if it is from 3 or 2. Bam's the difference maker. I mean, as much as I said Wiggins is the X factor, Bam needs to set the tone early. He did that in this last game, the first quarter. He had a good first quarter. It kind of tailed off as the game went on. He's got to attack Vucevic. He has to get to the middle of the floor. He has to fire over the top of him. He has to use his speed to his advantage. He has the ability to absolutely kill him in those ways offensively in the half court. And he's a part of this too, where I said they have to slow the game down. If he could get the ball in the mid post, get to the free throw line, work that pump fake, slow the game down, that's a difference maker. I don't think you need 25 points from Bam. You need him controlling pace. You need him kind of controlling the game and just being the guy that slows things down.
I'm with you on Bam. I know he's going to be a lightning rod either way here. Vucevic is somebody who's had success against Miami in a whole bunch of different ways. I thought that was over when he left to Orlando. He had some softer games against Miami, and then he picked it up again. I think we're kind of in the same place here. I think close game, clutch decision-making, Bam being willing to shoot over Vucevic and attack. And additionally, Tyler, again, making best decisions down the stretch. I have confidence in some of these guys to come up with a big game, but the Heat need an X factor. They need a Duncan to have a strong game. We've seen him not play particularly well in some of the games that have mattered, but then in others that have, I think Kyle Anderson's ability to kind of slow the pace down will be critical in this game. But ultimately, I'm calling a last-second Miami Heat loss. I think that's where I'm at with it, which means they'll win by 25. Because technically on paper, their numbers are better than Chicago's overall, the net rating and other things like that. But it's the late game decision-making that matters most in a game like this. All right, Brady, any final thoughts before we close it?
Oof. I think the other difference maker is Davion to me. I mean, you mentioned it. Like, I don't know how they're going to guard out the gate, because if they do start Tyler and Alec, I mean, are you putting Wiggins on Giddey and kind of playing the edges with Tyler and Burks? I think they're going to get to a point where you see Davion come in early, because I think they're going to need his defense. They're going to need him to stop things at the point of attack, to not put that pressure on Wiggins the entire game. And I'm also wondering, do you think it's possible they do a lineup change? Do you think it's possible that could Davion start for Alec Burks? Like, that's the one change I think that they could be thinking about right now.
I think so, and I think most Heat fans would want it. And we have seen him lean into guys from the bench and pull them off the bench. Dragic in the bubble is the best example. But I think what it does is it changes the rotation off the bench a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he wants to do that, because then he doesn't really have another handler coming off the bench. And as you know, it changes kind of the layering with Hero and other directions that they go in. And I wonder if that's where they're at, where he's at, because again, he has done this where he pulled Mike Miller off the bench in the finals. And remember against the Spurs, I think in 2013, and that was like something that we didn't see coming until the day of. So I could see Davion in the starting lineup. I absolutely could against this team. But I think he leaves it alone. I think he gives Burks the first few minutes. I can see Davion maybe starting the second half, if necessary, or even Haywood, if Haywood's defending well, kind of coming in earlier defensively. But I do think it's something that he will consider.
So do we think it's an 8-man rotation in this game? Is that kind of the thought? Because I think they're got the lean. The only way that they could bypass the handler thing you mentioned is if maybe that forces him to play Tyler 40 minutes, like 42 minutes.
Yeah.
Like
no, see, I think it's 9, because I think Kyle Anderson's the 9th. I'm thinking Highsmith, Mitchell, Davion Duncan.
Yeah, I'd say Kyle Anderson probably gets some minutes. Especially, I will say this: the reason why he does fit this matchup is because he does have the ability to slow the game down. Like, he has that factor where he could kind of just bog the game down offensively a little bit, and I think they need that in this matchup. But I think he's kind of in the Burks bucket, where it's like he's going to get kind of that 4 or 5 minute stretch in the first half, see how it goes, and in the second half, it's everybody's minutes are all cut down, and they could go to probably a 6-man rotation in the second half.
All right, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if we have another one to cover, catch all the coverage. If you're more interested in the draft pick conversation, I did that one with Alex. May jump on and do something bigger picture with Greg tonight. Always appreciate Brady's insights. You can find him obviously at Brady Hawk 305 and on our podcast and on our Discord server. Check that out at Off the Floor. Have a good one, everybody.